Yep, we are ready now.
Okay, this is the ordinary meeting of the council on the 28th of July 2020, held via remote technology. I now hand you over to Dr. Rosemary Dillon, our Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Storm. Good evening, councillors. Welcome to this ordinary meeting of Blue Mountain City Council. This meeting is being recorded and will be live streamed. An audio file and a link to a live stream is available from the council's website. The audio recording will be available on the council's website for 6 months after the upload date. As all statements made at this meeting will be recorded, your image and voice may be recognised and other people may be aware that you have attended the meeting. Your continued attendance at this meeting after this statement is made is taken as your consent to your image and voice being webcast. All persons in attendance at this meeting, whether addressing the council or making comments that may be detected by the recording equipment, should refrain from making any defamatory comments or from releasing any personal or confidential information about another individual without the other individual's consent. The council is not responsible for the statements of any individual made during this meeting. Any defamatory statements or any statements which include personal or confidential information are the sole responsibility of the individual who makes them. The Council Code of Meeting Practice sets standards of conduct for a council meeting. If any person in attendance at the meeting acts in a disorderly manner, or if a person makes defamatory or unacceptable comments, then the meeting may be interrupted by the Mayor or by me, Chief Executive Officer, and appropriate action taken. This meeting must not be recorded by any party other than the council. Members of the public have been invited to provide submissions to items on the meeting agenda in advance. Any submissions received have been provided to councillors. Please welcome the Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know the CEO was drowned out then, so if everyone can make sure they're on mute, that would be good. Dear God, we sincerely seek your blessing on this council so that its deliberations may advance your glory and the true welfare of the people of the City of Blue Mountains. The City of Blue Mountains is located within the country of the Darug and the Gundungurra peoples. The Blue Mountain City Council recognises that Darug and Gundungurra traditional owners have a continuous and deep connection to their country, and that this is of great cultural significance to Aboriginal people, both locally and in the region. For Darug and Gundungurra people, Ungra takes in everything within the physical, cultural and spiritual landscape: landforms, waters, air, trees, rocks, plants, animals, foods, medicines, minerals, stories and special places. It includes cultural practice, kinship, knowledge, songs, stories and art, as well as spiritual beings and people, past, present and future. Blue Mountain City Council pays respect to elders past and present, while recognising the strength, capacity and resilience of past and present Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the Blue Mountains region. Thank you all and welcome. Welcome also to the audience. Do I have any apologies? I don't think there are any apologies for tonight. You all seem to be here and present. Confirmation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 30th of June 2020. It's moved Councillor Vanderklay, seconded Councillor Christie. They be taken as a true record. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. And I'll sign that now. Thank you, councillors. Declaration of interest. Are there any declarations? I'll start with Councillor Hollywood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a non-significant...
Shay, you're not on mute.
Sorry, I was talking about my dog.
Thank you. Councillor Hollywood.
Sorry. I have a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in relation to the item on housing strategy, which is item 16.
Yep.
Simply because my work is also going to be doing a submission as well. So
you'll be remaining in the chamber?
I will be remaining on Zoom in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a significant pecuniary interest regarding a matter of urgency, sending in Councillor McGregor's name regarding the Woolworths development. I am an employee of the Woolworths Group, so I'll be leaving the chamber.
Thanks, Councillor Christie. We'll note that. When the item comes up, if you can just step away from the screen and not participate in the meeting, that'll be adequate. Thank you very much. Councillor van der Clay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a conflict of interest in the matter brought to council as a matter of urgency. Well, Councillor McGregor, relating to the Woolworths development. I'm on the Western Sydney Planning Panel, and I will be refraining from voting and out of the room.
If you can move away from the screen at the time, that would be appreciated,
Okay.
Councillor. Thank you very much. Councillor Fell, I take it that impacts you as well?
Yes, it does, but I shall be stepping aside from my position on the Joint Regional Planning Panel. So
Yes.
that will resolve the conflict of interest. So I should
Okay,
say.
so you're declaring conflict of interest in that matter because of your presence on the planning panel, and your remedy of that is that you'll step aside from the planning panel so that you can debate matters here. Yes?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. The executive officer will so note. Any further? Councillor Brown.
I'm declaring a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest. I am a member, an unpaid director of Bendigo Bank, Katoomba, but I will still vote and comment on the investment strategy.
Which item is that, Councillor?
Sorry. Oh, sorry, give me a minute.
Sorry,
It's 8.
Yeah, is it 8? 8, yeah, 8.
item 8. Thanks, Councillor, but you'll be remaining in the room.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Councillor Miles.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item 15, the Springwood Tennis Club lease. One of the board members is known to me personally, and I have spoken to them about this issue. I don't think that compromises my ability, and I'll remain in the room and vote on that matter.
Thank you. And Councillors Brown and Miles, if you go on to mute. Councillor Miles, congratulations for being the first person tonight to pronounce the word pecuniary properly. Any other conflicts of interest? No? Okay, thank you very much. Then we'll move on to mayoral minutes. Mayoral minute number 1, standing in my name, at second, Councillor Christie. The establishment of a cycling committee, a cycling advisory committee. Councillors, I don't intend to speak for long on this. All this mayoral minute does is it calls for a report on the establishment of a cycling advisory committee to facilitate ongoing dialogue and communication between us and relevant groups and individuals in relation to cycling across the mountains. I bring this before you because it's my view that cycling is on the increase, that there are many people choosing to take up cycling, and that it's both an exercise and also a form of transport. And while we provide a range of services like cycleways for cyclists, etc., I think the establishment of a committee will ensure that the community has a chance to provide input and feedback into the future of cycling in the mountains, because we are going to have to plan for it. My anticipation is that the committee will be chaired by a councillor, and that will be determined when the report comes back, and that it will not have decision-making authority. Rather, that would sit quite properly with us. But issues and information raised at the advisory committee will be open to the public, and the information on outcomes of the committee's deliberations will be reported to council for resolution and publicly available on our website. The committee, of course, will be open to all interested councillors, and they would be welcome to attend. I chair enough committees, so as with another committee, I will be asking another to do that work, but that will come up when the report comes back. Mr. Parsons, we don't intend to nominate a chair this evening, do we?
No, we do not, Mr. Mayor. We'll simply bring you back a report on how that may occur and that committee may form.
Yeah, thank you. I've got nothing further, councillors. Does the seconder wish to speak? Councillor Christie, or are you content?
No, I'm content. It is a bit odd seeing Gary without a tie on, though.
Yeah, thank you. It is unusual. All right, any other councillors? Councillor Brown?
Yes, I think this is fantastic. I've been cycling, I was just working it out in the mountains for 40 years. And I want to just say what I think is important with how the committee or who's on the committee. I think there's three different groups, at least three different groups of cyclists. Someone like me who's been for most of my life, I'm a commuting cyclist, so it was my only vehicle. It's only when I became a gardener and I couldn't get the lawnmower and the mattock on the bike that I had to get a vehicle. But so there's the commuting type, but also someone like me who's recreational as well, because it's a great, I love it. There's another sort that's developed, like they appeared, I think, in the 90s, which is the sort of middle-aged get fit men. They're often the cycling club people. They sort of hunt in packs and they wear lycra and they like to go really fast, often along highways. And then there's another group that I think is going to become more important with electric bikes. There's the family groups who are very recreational, will include tourists, and they need very safe routes and they want picturesque places and so on. But so I think, and I feel that that last group particularly can be hugely expanded if we look at, when we're looking at where we're putting cycleways and what we're prioritising, we think about them. Because I think that will also help with tourism, with congestion and traffic, if we start looking at developing those walking cycleways where families and and people who aren't sort of highly experienced cyclists or young children can be safe. And that's very different from a commuting cyclist or a get fit, head down and go for it cyclist. So I'd like to see, and I think they're all valid types of cyclist, but they have different needs. And so I think it's important with the cycling group that we recognise those different types of cyclists and we're catering to them and thinking about them, and particularly as a way of helping with our traffic management, as well as starting to develop tourism attraction around cycling and walking. And with electric bikes coming in is the new thing that will actually allow a lot more people to do it in such a hilly terrain. Thank you.
I'd just ask any councillors seeking to attend to avoid the cycling lycra garb at the meeting. Hope for more formal attire. Councillor Miles and others. All right, who else wishes to speak? Councillor Hollywood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do we all wish to agree with this tonight?
We do wish to agree with it, and I guess I just wanted to say that I think it's a really important initiative, and I think that how it intersects with our planning around pedestrian access and mobility is also really important. And I would also say that there are some women cyclists in lycra who are middle-aged and like to get fit, and I might be one of those people. So there we go. And I'm not very speedy though. But yeah, on a more serious note, I also think that there's massive issues in relation to safety for cyclists. So I think that this is a good initiative.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor van der Clay.
Just as a fourth group, I think that needs to be involved, and that's the off-road bike riders, because they ride on the road and off the road. So I think they should be involved in this committee. That's all I got to say.
Councillor Christie and I had them in mind, didn't we, Councillor Christie? We've had a fair few of them make themselves known to us in the lower part of the mountains. Anything further? No? All right. There's one matter before us, mayoral minute standing in my name and that of Councillor Christie. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. The next mayoral minute standing in my name is item number 2, local government task force supporting people seeking asylum. Seconded Councillor McGregor. Councillors, I received a correspondence some weeks ago from a colleague, the Mayor of Dandenong, on behalf of the local government mayoral task force, which supports people seeking asylum. And he wrote to me as a fellow mayor, and he's inviting all mayors across the nation to sign an open letter to the Prime Minister in order to extend critical support to refugees and people seeking asylum. I'll be very proud to put my signature on that letter. In response to the devastating impact that COVID-19 is having on people seeking asylum in our communities, this mayoral task force and indeed the Refugee Council of Australia jointly seek to send an open letter to the federal government asking for greater assistance to be provided for this group of people. Now, this reinforces the message to the federal government that a safety net and access to Medicare must immediately be provided to all people seeking asylum. Now, you will all know that our council, Blue Mountain City Council, can support this initiative. You know that we can support it by becoming part of the task force, and I seek that we do. Local government plays a role in the task force. There's a group of 32 councils across the country. It was formed in the middle of 2018, and it was all about joint advocacy against cuts and the status of the Reconciliation Support Services program that left many people seeking asylum across Australia destitute. So that was a response at the time in 2018. The local governments around Australia are expressing grave concern about the unfolding COVID-19 pandemic and its impact on those most vulnerable people in our community, those seeking asylum. So, councillors, without an adequate safety net in place, it isn't possible for people to protect themselves from infection, to self-isolate, and to prevent the spread of COVID-19 generally, particularly in relation to this vulnerable group. There's an important letter that needs to go to the federal government. I am strongly of the view that my signature representing all of you should be on that. And I would seek your support for what is, I believe, a very worthy initiative, and us signing up as local governments to being champions of human rights in Australia. Does the seconder wish to speak? Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As it happens, my daughter, who works for immigration, deals with people in this dilemma. Apparently the only support that is offered is offered to people in a who have very serious problems and they still can't get visas. But the bulk of refugees are left exposed without medical support and without financial support. They're often forced to go out to work in precarious situations, and they've got no choice if they're sick but to go out and seek support. They live in overcrowded conditions, often 15 or 16 people in a home, and they're particularly vulnerable. I think it's a stain on our humanity that we're not offering support for these people who are particularly vulnerable at the particularly dangerous time. And I'd also note that, while we can offer moral support, councils like Cumberland, Fairfield and Liverpool, who have huge refugee populations, are really struggling to provide the support that the federal government is not providing.
Yes, thank you, Councillor McGregor. If you could mute now, I appreciate your speech and support. Any further statements tonight on this matter? Councillor Brown.
Yes, I first of all, a shout out to the Greens of Greater Dandenong for this. That's a great initiative. I got the material as well, so I'm really pleased. I that it's, I think it's really important to do this. It's not just a token thing. It is about real strong advocacy to show it's almost unbelievable meanness, unnecessary meanness of these cuts, which it's hard to understand when really they are about damaging the social fabric, because as Councillor McGregor has said, you put pressure on the whole community, because I think that still the majority of people in our community don't want to see people fall. And so so communities are trying to help and councils are trying to help. And I just acknowledge that our Blue Mountains Refugee Support Group does do some terrific work in this area, as to our local community with their generosity and with the raffles and the auction that's on at the moment, and jumble sales, constant fundraising, which it really shouldn't be necessary. I just find it incredible that a government could be so callous, really. So I totally support exposing what's going on and the cruelty of it.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Anyone else? Anything further? If not, there's one matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? I'll go around the table. Councillor McGregor, Councillor Brown, Councillor Miles, Councillor Fernanda, Councillor Fell, Councillor Hoare, Councillor Brown, I think I've already said, Councillor Bowling, Councillor Hollywood and Councillor Greenhill against, Councillor Christie and Councillor van der Clay. I haven't recorded a vote for you. You'll need to tell me how you voted. Councillor Christie is against?
I'm for the motion.
You're for. So, okay. So it's everyone in favour, Councillor Christie against.
And Schreiber.
And sorry, I'll call it again. Sorry, it's hard to see on the Brady Bunch makeup. I'll call it. All those in favour. I'll start from my bottom. When I say I'll start from my bottom, I mean the bottom of my screen. So Councillor McGregor, Councillor Brown, Councillor Miles, Councillor Fernanda, Councillor van der Clay, Councillor Bowling, Councillor Hoare, Councillor Fell, Councillor Hollywood and Councillor Greenhill in favour. Against, Councillors Schreiber and Christie. I declare the motion or the mayoral minute carried, and thank you for your support. We now move to items on which councillors wish to address us, and I'll traverse the screen in the order that I see people. Councillor Fell, I see you first. Do you wish to pull any matters out, items out?
I do. Items 5 and 13.
5 and 13. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Item 6, 8.
Sorry, Councillor Brown was the first one.
6.
6, yes.
6, the complaints, yeah. 6, 8.
Yes.
12, and I think that's it.
Thank you, Councillor
Brown. 18, just 18. Yep, sorry, just very briefly, 18, yep.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Hoare. Councillor Brown, if you could mute. Councillor Hoare, if you could unmute.
Yes, thank you, Mr. I'm content.
Sorry?
I'm content. All already.
Sorry, Councillor, I can't hear you. You're dropping out. Can you show me with your hands which items you wish to pull out? 10.
I'm fine. No. I'm good. I'm all good.
You have an audit. You have an audibility issue, Councillor Hall. We can't hear you. Okay, thank you. If you could go back on mute. Councillor Fell, I've spoken to. Councillor Brown, I've spoken to. Councillor Miles. Councillor McGregor. Councillor Fernanda. Councillor Christie. Councillor Bowling. Councillor van der Clay. Councillor Hollywood.
They're already out.
Yes. Councillor Schreiber.
Nil.
Thank you, sir. Councillor Greenhill, none. All right. So, councillors, mark your papers accordingly. Items 3, 4, 7, 9, 10, 11, 14, 15, 16, 17, 19 and 20 as well. 19 and 20 are all, and 21 are all to be passed in globo. I have a motion to do that. It's moved Councillor Van der Clay, seconded Councillor Bowling. And I'll ask Councillor Van der Clay to take the chair. I'm cheekily going to speak to the in globo motion. Cheekily.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, you've got the floor.
Yes, thank you. In speaking in favour of the in globo motion, I just want to note a stand taken by the councillors and thank you all. Because the Remuneration Tribunal would have enabled you all to give yourselves pay rise tonight. And I'm really pleased to say that when we discussed this, all of us believed that that would be inappropriate. We all noted the pain and hardship that the community is going through. And we all noted that even though council stipends are very small, it would be inappropriate for public office holders to receive a remuneration increase. I'm proud of all of you for taking that stand. It may only be symbolic, but sometimes symbols matter. And I did want to just thank all of the governing body for unanimously being of that view. And having said that, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I'm happy to resume the chair.
You've got the chair, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, all those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. Which brings me, councillors, to item number 5. Councillor Brown, did you pull item 5 out? Or was it Councillor? No, it was Councillor Fell. Councillor Fell, you pulled item 5 out. It's moved Councillor Fell, seconded Councillor Hollywood. Councillor Hollywood has... Yeah, Councillor Brown, I will come to you when I have a mover and seconder. And Councillor Brown, it's been 4 years, you know, I will come to you. I won't forget you. I will not forget you. Councillor Hollywood, in seconding the motion, you and Councillor Fell actually have a different set of words to those that are in the business paper. Do you want to just acquaint us with the difference? Those councillors who've seen Councillor Hollywood's amendment will now take that to be the motion because she's the seconder and Councillor Fell's agreed. But Councillor Hollywood, for the audience, the many thousands of people tuned in tonight listening, do you just want to quickly take them through the difference?
For all those people who are hanging off my every word, surprisingly, there is a additional point which relates to one of the submissions around the resourcing of the pedestrian access and mobility plan. And I noted in some of the councillor comments...
Just the difference, please, Councillor Hollywood. I'm not inviting you to speak.
Oh, sorry. The difference is it's an additional point that we receive a briefing in relation to the submission and councillor comments on the pedestrian access and mobility plan and get an update. That
will do. Thank you. Councillor Brown, I think you had an amendment too. Can I ask you to just tell us what that is and we'll see if it's take on boardable or whether it needs to be moved separately?
I'd rather do it separately just because it's a different thing.
That's my call. It's also the call of the mover and seconder. So do you just want to, if the mover and seconder take it on board, it's taken on board. So do you just want to take us through what it is?
Well, I put it in earlier today, so it should have been heard first.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way, Councillor. I have a mover and seconder. They come first. So can you just take it to us? Take us to it.
It's actually a detailed about a change that's been requested by members of the community to the hall hire.
Ah, yes, thank you. Thank you. That's moved and seconded by Councillors Brown and Schreiber, but do the mover and seconder of the original motion take it on board or do you wish to have it taken as a separate motion?
Mr. Mayor.
I want it as a separate motion because it's a separate thing.
Councillor Brown, in terms of the code of conduct, I've ruled, please don't interrupt me again. Do the mover and seconder wish to take it on board? I don't mind.
Well, I'm happy to take it on board, yes. Simple
You're
answer.
the seconder. Councillor Fell, do you take it on board?
Yeah, I take it on board.
It's taken on board. Thank you. All right, there's one matter before us.
Point of order. She's got to actually, when something's taken on board, that person then has to add it in their own words.
Yeah, your words have been supplied. Your words will be taken to be part of the motion. You can speak to it in a moment. I'll take the mover first. Does the mover wish to speak?
Then my amendment was in first. Point of order, my amendment was in first. So actually, that should have been heard first.
There's no point of order. Councillor Fell, as the mover, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Does the seconder wish to speak?
I hope that people will will vote in support not only of the original words that you would have read in preparation for this council meeting, but also the 2 amendments that are coming forward. And the first one that the Mayor has taken because of the way we put our hands up relates to, as I said, submissions that were made by a particular member of the community in relation to the resourcing of the pedestrian access and mobility plan. And we know that that's a really important issue. The council officers in their response have highlighted that there has been a review of the pedestrian access and mobility plan through the active transport. Like, I'm just interested to know how those actually work, the active transport strategy and the pedestrian access and mobility plan. I think it's really important that we're briefed on that. And also that I wanted to recognise as well in the motion, in the amendment, that we also have a resolution that we passed and supported in 2019 to really look in the next 4-year delivery plan, which would be, you know, really this, we would be doing it now, except for the changes to the election date, around how we can direct more funding progressively to the pedestrian access and mobility plan. So that's why I've moved that motion. I'm also happy to support and take on board the motion around the fees because, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, but I actually saw Councillor Brown roll her eyes at me.
Councillor Hollywood, please move on. Councillor
Yep.
Brown hasn't done anything wrong.
Okay, so I was also contacted by members of the community and today, and had also been seeking to follow up on that. And I was advised in relation to the fees and charges for community groups in the halls area that councillors in Ward 1 were working on that issue. So I was very happy to see that amendment come through. I thank Councillor Brown and Councillor Schreiber and McGregor for working on that amendment, and we've been very happy to take it on board. So thank you.
Councillor Brown, do you wish to speak? You've added to the motion tonight in an important way. Do you want to go through that?
I don't know that I will bother. I think people who I worked on know what we've done. It's simply a technical issue around hall hire and ensuring that community groups aren't priced out. So it's something that we'll need to look at in detail in a year's time, but this is just to just stop what looked like could be large charges for groups when they weren't in between performances. I think if it's something that's been asked for by the community groups. As far as the footpaths go, I'd like to just say on that, I think briefing's fine, but I feel very strongly that in the next round, which is in a year's time, council needs to consider actually allocating more of its own budget to footpaths. I think that this 300,000, these small amounts that are being allocated and then we're relying on getting grants is so underdoing what we need for footpaths. I think there's more money for cycleways possibly, but there's just so many areas now in the mountains where every ward, we're all convinced that we need footpaths more than any other ward. So I think that there's a need to look at that in terms of the prioritisation of our budgets. I know we can't do it now, but I'm just flagging that for next year. I think it's incredibly important that we maybe reassess the priority we give to footpaths. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Brown. And there was a motion moved by the council last year, I think, that we do augment our own budget. So it's a point well made. Anything further, councillors, on this matter? There's one matter before us. There's been no one speaking in opposition. I'll put it all as in favour. Against, declare it carried unanimously. Councillor Brown, I think you pulled out item 6. Did you wish to move something?
Is that's the complaints, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, I have a small amendment. I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to find.
That becomes the motion because you're moving it.
Yes. And this is in relation to one sentence actually in the complaints process. Well, there's two sentences. I'll just read them out. In section 4.5, which is about providing reasons for decisions, there's two sentences which say, you will not be provided with details of any, this is if you put in a complaint to council about, I guess, council staff or a councillor. You will not be provided with details of any disciplinary action or conduct investigation. This may also limit council's ability to inform you whether or not the matter was substantiated. So I'm proposing not changing that first sentence, which I think is fair enough. You will not be provided with details of any disciplinary action or conduct investigation. However, I believe that people do have a right to know whether their complaint has been substantiated.
So you move the recommendation tonight with that word change. Is it seconded?
Yeah, the word change, sorry, I think it's...
Yeah, no, we've got that.
You've
So
got
is it
that, everyone's
seconded?
got it.
Is it seconded? Seconded, Councillor Schreiber. Just before I take you, Councillor Brown, I just want to ask the CEO, through the CEO, the relevant staff member, does the staff have any issue with that that alteration? It seems fine to me, but I'll ask for this. Councillor Brown, if you just go on mute, I'll ask for the staff's view. And then Councillor Brown, I'll come back to you to speak to it if you wish.
Mr. Mayor,
Staff view?
I asked Ms. Cooper to review it, and I'll now refer to her for a view.
Ms. Cooper.
Thank you. Through the CEO, the wording is just acknowledging that in some cases there are confidentiality provisions. However, the wording that Councillor Brown has proposed, I don't think causes any significant issue to the policy that we can't work with.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I ask if there's any opposition to this motion? Take it there's not. Councillor Brown, did you still wish to speak to it? It seems to be without opposition.
No, if it's not, that's fine. Yep.
Yes, it seems to be accepted all round. So I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. No one was out of the room for that, were they? No, everyone in the room. Excellent. Item number 8, who pulled this out?
What is 8?
8 is performance of investments.
Oh, I did.
Councillor Brown, do you wish to move something?
Well, I just want to move it, but I just wanted to speak to it. Yeah.
Move Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Van der Clay. The mover has the floor.
I just wanted to say I'm pleased to see that we're continuing to diversify our investments away from the big four and toward there's an increase in financial institutions with what I would call stronger environmental and ethical policies. I think that's really wonderful to see. Some of them stronger than others, but there's a couple there that are absolutely fossil fuel free or coal and coal seam gas. And it's great looking at all those financial institutions to see how strong their climate change policies are becoming and their mechanisms for actually measuring climate change disclosures, they're calling it, on investment, so you can find out more about the impact of the investments on climate change, to the good or bad. So there's clearly what the council's doing in trying to divest away from unsustainable and unethical, I think is part of what's happening worldwide now, where financial institutions are having to take that on. I saw that even, arms, investing in small arms and munitions and things is being noted. So I just was really pleased to see us part of that. And I'm just would like also at some point for us to report on that in a way that we can have a bit of measurement of it, because I think it does feed into our carbon neutral plans as well. So it's just keeping in mind that it'd be good as we continue with this process to also, I guess, talk a bit about the fact that we're doing that and that our investments are nevertheless, managing very well. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Anyone further on this matter? There being none, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 12, which one of you pulled this one out? Tender report, Springwood Works Depot Amenity Building Upgrade. Councillor Brown, do you wish to move something?
No, I'm just going to move it.
Yes, moved
I-
Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Fernanda, as it's in her ward. Councillor Brown has the call.
I just wanted to acknowledge that even though, to my disappointment, there are still no tenders from Blue Mountains businesses. Maybe there weren't any that had the capacity. That was disappointing, so we couldn't give it. I just wanted to acknowledge that I was pleased to see that we did include in the information about the sustainability assessment. It did say that the recommended contractor has advised that they employ staff who live in the Blue Mountains LGA and intend to engage local subcontractors where possible. So I was pleased to see that beginning of that, and I just encourage a bit more information around that. And so we've got a picture as these large amounts of money go out, that we are just the amount that might be coming back into our own economy. But anyway, it's a start. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Anyone further on this matter? No? All right, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried unanimously. Item number 13, Councillor Fell moves. Councillor Fernandez seconds the Springwood Country Club item. Councillor Fell as mover. Do you wish to speak?
Just thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, firstly, I'd like to move the motion as printed.
You've done that, Councillor.
I have indeed.
And congratulations on moving it.
I feel very good about that. Thank you. And just to highlight that, just to emphasise that we're now moving on. I think it's great that we are finally getting somewhere with this this issue. It's been a very vexed issue. It's been a big worry around Springwood, and I'd like to draw the attention of councillors and anybody else who's listening to the fact that the independent auditors who were brought in have indicated very clearly that there is a clear financial pathway ahead, and that the club is well placed to stride forward with great confidence as it deals with the issues outlined in the report. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Fell, just before I take the seconder, I just want to sort of reflect upon the exchange between us before about your happiness at moving a particular motion. I just want to say that the moving of some motions is more difficult than others. Some motions take a great deal of time to move, but I often do agree with you. One feels much better afterwards. Does the seconder wish to speak?
I just want to echo the sentiments of Councillor Fell. I think that this is a wonderful step forward, and good news that independents have come in to do the assessment, removing any bias or any optics of bias to assure the community again that the club is viable to move forward. And I think, to maintain a wonderful community asset such as the country club goes without saying. So it's a good result. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to Councillor Christie for being the only one to laugh at my joke a moment ago too. Councillor, I appreciated the solidarity. All right, there's anyone else wish to speak on the Springwood Country Club? Councillor Brown, then Councillor Schreiber. Councillor Brown has the call.
Yes, I'm supporting the motion, and I'm pleased to see that we have found some solutions. I just want to note a few things. I think, we seem to have gone through a fair bit of trauma around this. We now, 2 years ago, it was urgent to do the roof and the sewerage, and we had a big loan and we couldn't rescind it. And then we did rescind it, and now we're not doing that loan. And it seems that they're managing, the club is managing. So that's, but that's a sort of puzzling change, but good news. I think it's fantastic that the asbestos is only 80,000, because that was probably that could have been crippling. So that's also really good that we've been able to find a solution which includes capping on that. I do support it, but I feel a little differently in that I see that the income increases are around called gaming and functions. So, and they're not, it's not huge increases. It's not something that will be really worrying, but that's where the income is from. And I personally have strong family experiences around gambling, I suppose, and alcohol. So I'm very wary of that. And I know that clubs do need to build, that has to be part of their income. But I am very keen to see that there be work with the club around other income streams. Because I suppose I feel long term it's still really hard for golf. Golf isn't a sort of increasing sport. And so I think it's still an issue that we need to work with the club closely on and be open in the end. And this is not, there's been some rather strange social media at some point suggesting that I was suggesting development, which I never have. But I think we should always be open to that community, to working with the club if they ever feel that even to go down to things like sporting fields and other uses, that we should always be open to that. But having said that, I'm glad that we've found a lease where the council itself, other than the loan for 80,000, isn't going to be incurring any great costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Schreiber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'll be supporting this, but I would ask the staff or whoever it is that in paragraph 1, at the end of it, that the council be provided with a balance statement each year. That way we are up to date with what is happening with the club. And I think that's only fair as it is our property. And but I do support the motion. It's just that I think we should be provided with a balance statement each year.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Schreiber. And I think I saw Dr. Dillon nodding there that she thought that was an excellent idea. Yes, she did. She's smiling away. Thank you. Anyone further? Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make the point quickly and support the comments that have been made by my ward colleagues. We want to see this whole site remain in public ownership. I, like them, very pleased with the information we've received from the club, particularly around that golf participation was on the increase, which was one of the interesting byproducts of the current COVID crisis. And also that the sums of money that had been released from an earlier rain event was going to, in some way, go towards repairing those items that we talked about. Lastly, though, I wanted to make a very clear point to the community that we are determined to link the roof of that clubhouse with the dam and ensure that we have a full dam come next fire season. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Miles. And can I thank you also for your strong advocacy for public ownership. When it comes to public ownership, think of Councillor Miles. Anyone else? Councillor Christie, you are my favourite tonight. You've laughed at both my jokes. There's been no other matters, no other people wishing to speak. Councillor Brown, thank you too. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. Item number 18, who pulled this out? Councillor Brown. Do you wish to move something? Do you wish to move?
Got to make the best with what there's not as much meat of these as there used to be, and all the controversy's gone.
Do you wish to move?
I just want to move it.
Yes, a second to Councillor Hollywood. Councillor Brown.
I just wanted to really give support to the important point about the infrastructure contributions. And it's just saying, yeah, I really agree that we need to be able to increase the percentage of the contributions on very large scale, well, large scale for us developments, and also those that have a sort of strong impact on tourism. I just think picking up that when we can get a development that may generate a huge amount of sort of tourist activity, which on one level is good, but can also put a lot of pressure on infrastructure and resources. And I think what the planning staff have said so well is that they need to have some agency themselves, some discretion to be able to have a sliding scale on those contributions when we know the impact to infrastructure on a particular type of development, not just the size, but the type. And also the other point that given our bushfire, the fact that we need to have infrastructure and emergency infrastructure and preparedness, and including for tourists, again, we have sort of our infrastructure needs are out of proportion to our just our residents. So I do support pushing for us to increase those infrastructure contributions from the larger development. Thank you.
Councillor Brown, you may overtake Councillor Bowling as the most verbose councillor tonight. All right, and Councillor Miles, you're the councillor who looks the most like a doorman this evening. Impassive, unmovable. All right, anyone else wish to speak?
I'd have to respectfully suggest you consider Councillor Hoare in that high appraisal. We could possibly, as we always do, work together.
Yep, the Kelly gang. Councillor Hollywood was the seconder. Did you wish to contribute to the debate?
Look, I'll reserve comments. Sorry, I would reserve my comments. I mean, I support the report, and I think it's really important that we find ways to be able to fund the massive infrastructure needs that we have.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. There being nothing else on this, I think, in the debate, there being no opposition, I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. Thank you. Matter of urgency number 1, standing in name of Councillor Brown in relation to the removal of Blackheath West and Town Centre options for the highway. I declare the matter is indeed urgent. It's moved Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Schreiber. Councillor Brown, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, just I think certainly the Ward 1 councillors are very aware of this issue, and we've had briefings on the options, but just to remind everyone, the 2 particular options I'm talking about are the western side of Blackheath. One of them literally ploughs through Station Street, which, like a lot of our station streets, has beautiful old heritage homes, as well as the RSLs there, the RFSs there, and they would all be knocked down for a cut and cover. So that's just so untenable. Beautiful homes going back into the 1880s, and the other one on the same side would basically give Blackheath a view of the highway raised up. Instead of looking over the escarpment, you would now be looking at a raised, elevated sweep that would highway that would sweep up and block the view, and also have huge noise issues. So they're really, and they weren't even options that were there when it was first announced. The tunnel was the original one. So those 2 options have caused quite a bit of division in Blackheath, where people on the western side were just saying, do the tunnel, do the tunnel, do the tunnel, we've got to save our homes. And so everyone's come together and said those options must go off. And also the one through the town centre, which again is just untenable to sort of plough through make the highway that's already there bigger. So what we'll then be left with is there's three or possibly 4 versions of tunnels now. And I don't personally support the duplication, but I'm putting that aside at the moment and saying I just think for community solidarity, the Blackheath Highway Action Group, who prefer the rail options, and the Save the Station Street people, everyone agrees that if we just remove those 2 really untenable options, and the council come behind that position that's really taken very widely by the community. And so we're still leaving the tunnel options to be argued about, but and the potential for freight and so on rail, but just to remove those options so that we keep the community together. I think that's everyone's got common ground on that they don't want Station Street ploughed through. They don't want a big highway elevated, over the escarpment. So I hope everyone will support us making that clear to the Minister and to the Director Alistair Lum. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Schreiber. Councillor McGregor, I know you have a slight amendment. I'll come to you in a moment. I'll just take the seconder first. It may be the mover and seconder take your amendment on board, but let's hear from the seconder first, and then we'll come to your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, in supporting Councillor Brown's urgency motion and supporting the community of Blackheath, which I've met with numerous times, and this seems to be what is their major concern, is what's going to happen on the western side and about the escarpment. When you see the one that's hanging off down at Wollongong, could you imagine having that hanging off our escarpment in such a tourist sort of an area and in our national park? So, Mr. Mayor, I'm only too happy to support Councillor Brown in this and the community of Blackheath.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Schreiber. Councillor McGregor, you had an amendment. I rather think it may be acceptable to move and second, but I don't know. Let's see.
Has the executive officer circulated the amendment?
Executive officer?
No.
No, I haven't seen it, Councillor McGregor.
Okay, I shall read it first then. The following words precede Councillor Brown's very important urgency motion. Starting out, noting Council's 26th of November 2019 resolution calling on the state government to abandon plans for the duplication of the Great Western Highway in the Blue Mountains, and noting Council's grave concerns about the consequent destruction of native bushland, the effect on local communities, the possible resumption of homes, and the removal of residential and community amenity, and the impact on towns and villages from Mount Victoria all the way through to Glenbrook. And then go on,
sorry, go ahead.
And then continues with the substance of Councillor Brown's motion.
So it's seconded Councillor Miles. Unless the Councillor Brown Schreiber are happy to take that on board, it seems to just note a previous resolution. Are you content to take that on board?
Yes, I mean, we put a lot of time into consulting everyone on the words we had, but I'm taking that as we're simply noting something. We're not.
Yes, it's a resolution we've moved. Yeah. Are you happy to take that on board? Yeah. Okay. Well, then there's no need to, the amendment's taken on board. I thank Councillor Brown. Councillor Schreiber's hand went up. Thank you for that. Any further on this matter? Look, I might just ask the Deputy Mayor briefly to take the chair.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, you've got the chair.
Yes, thank you. Councillors, I'm glad this has come forward tonight. I thank the mover and seconder of the motion, and thank them also for taking on board Councillor McGregor's resolution. I think that or suggestion, they've taken it on board, it becomes part of the motion, makes it clear that we haven't changed our position in opposition to this matter. I just want to advise councillors that this is a matter that is rather interesting. Given the division it's caused in our community and given the fear that it's caused, it's interesting to note that it doesn't appear in any budget papers at this stage. It does still appear to be an unfunded proposition. I certainly hope this isn't a cruel election hoax aimed at getting the government to the next election, only for us to find, as we've found with suggestions about superhighways in the West in the past, that it doesn't materialise. I hope the government hasn't done that, because it's caused a great deal of hurt and pain in our community from one end of the mountains to the other. Now, I do note that we haven't seen costings for any options yet. I do note the budget papers don't contain a reference to it. And I just hope this isn't a cruel hoax, that it simply will fall away in years to come, because it has materially impacted people's lives, materially impacted properties in the part of the township of Station Street and around that's been mentioned tonight. I do want to pay a particular note to the people of Station Street. I think the issuing of that letter, if by accident or not, was nothing short of cruel. And I am glad we're taking a strong and particular stance as a council in relation to that tonight. Those councillors not on mute, please mute. I'll resume the chair, Deputy Mayor, if that's okay with you.
That's certainly, Mr. Mayor, you have the chair.
Thank you. Councillor McGregor has the call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to point out why I think it's necessary to add that small preamble to Councillor Brown's matter of urgency. I think that it's beyond dispute that the people on the western side of Blackheath are suffering now from the threat of repossession and the destruction of you know, some of the finest scenery in the Blue Mountains. They are suffering from that now, and so it is a matter of urgency that we lift those lift that corridor and get rid of it completely, and relieve them of the stress and tension and emotional distress that follows on from the resumption orders. It's also the destruction of Medlow Baths is also a matter of urgency.
Yes.
Because the RMS intends to go ahead with that first, to spend all of the available funds that were made, that were set aside for safety upgrades, to spend that on putting what's effectively 5 lanes of highway in the 950 or metres of Medlow Bath, and compressing huge traffic congestion there that will completely divide the community. I think that's another matter of urgency.
Yes.
Yeah, and it speaks to the ongoing impact of this plan on the whole of the Blue Mountains LGA. The thing's got to be fought step by step, village by village, apparently, if we're going to defeat this thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? It's not been spoken against. No. All right, there's one matter before us, urgency motion, standing in the name of councillors Brown and Schreiber. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. I'm right in that unanimous call, am I not? Yes, I'm right. Unanimous? Good. Thank you. I've got a matter of urgency standing in the name of Councillor Hollywood in relation to senior play equipment that was removed last weekend at Wentworth Falls Lake. I declare the matter as urgent. Councillor Vanderklay seconds. Councillor Hollywood, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And hopefully you've got the words in front of you, everyone. And hopefully they are fairly self-explanatory.
They are.
Great. So thank you. I guess the reason why I felt it was so important to bring forward this motion was really the community reaction was almost kind of immediate as soon as we put out on the corporate site. The response was really overwhelmingly negative as well, and many people expressing significant concern. So, I mean, the lessons for me is the value of our play equipment and our playgrounds for community members, and the really high level ownership, engagement, connection that people have with play equipment. So I just think that what was really concerning and what came out of the when we were looking at it more closely, and what the officers were highlighting was that we were possibly going to be without this play equipment because of an imminent upgrade for 6 to 12 months. And to me, that's just way too long to have equipment out of action at a district park. So we really do need to get a briefing. We need to find out what the solutions are, whether there's some kind of stopgap measure around the soft fall, whether the existing rubberized softball can be taken up, and whether there's mulch that can be used, and whether we can get this equipment back up and running safely for children and for their families. So I hope you'll support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hollywood. There's a second to wish to speak.
Just very quickly, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank Councillor Hollywood for putting this forward, and look forward to the briefing. So thank you, Councillor Hollywood.
Thanks, Councillor Vanderklay. Anyone else wish to speak on this matter? Councillor Hua.
If I just read the sentiments and thank
Councillor Hua, sorry, Councillor Hua, you're inaudible, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, we can't. Yeah, we can't hear you. Thank you.
It's
Anyone
not,
else?
it's not all that bad.
You can put it in the chat function.
Can I apologise to the public for that?
Can you hear me now? Hello.
Yeah. Give it a go.
Maybe it's beard.
Councillor
Yes,
Bolt.
well, I shall.
No, Councillor Hall, we can't. I won't push on.
Can I just suggest if he turns the vision off, sometimes it works.
Yeah, give that a go, Councillor Hall, for 2 reasons.
Yeah.
So you can't leave my middle of the speech just there, no.
Sorry, Councillor Hall. We're going to give up on you. We can't hear you.
Great face for radio.
It's very messy. Sorry, Councillor Hall, but we are sure that you very strongly support Councillor Hollywood's urgency motion. Yep, the thumbs say it all. I don't think there's any opposition to this. I'll put all those in favour. Against, declare it carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Matter of urgency from Councillor Christie in relation to the the latest New South Wales health order and bookings by the Vaxxed bus tour. I do declare this as urgent. Councillor Christie moves, Councillor Fell seconds. Councillor Christie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for ruling this as urgent. And I do believe it is urgent because this group can make a booking at any time. And this being the closest council meeting till August, late August, I think it was right that we brought it forward today. But just to read off some numbers, 15,304 Australians are currently infected with, have been infected or recovered from the coronavirus. And unfortunately, 167 people have lost their lives. The Vax Tour group, they don't believe in COVID-19 and they just believe it's a hoax. This is a group that believes that Bill Gates is behind the coronavirus. But what's worse is that this group is touring regional and rural Australia, encouraging people to come out and talk about vaccine-caused injuries. They're on a listening tour. But considering that rural and regional hospitals, like Katoomba Hospital, for example, are the least equipped to handle a pandemic, now is not the time to be crisscrossing our state, going through hotspots and potentially spreading this virus. Mr. Mayor, we live amongst an elderly community. A community that if this virus tore through would reap nothing but devastation. I don't believe that in good conscience we can let bus loads of people crisscrossing the state and booking our venues. And Mr. Mayor, this is not a freedom of speech issue. And the best thing about freedom of speech is that they have the freedom of speech to share all their tinfoil hat conspiracy theories. But I also have the freedom of speech to criticize and ridicule that view. But for as long as there is a public health order banning gatherings like the one they propose, this council should not allow bookings from this group. Once this whole crisis has passed, I'll look forward to doing it in person and not from behind a webcam. With the current spread that we're seeing in Victoria and from even a Thai restaurant, and with the current public health order, we cannot accept bookings for mass gatherings like busloads of touring conspiracy theorists. But after this pandemic is over, let's accept all the bookings they want. But for now, I believe that it is best that we protect our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Fell, did you wish to speak as a seconder?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I'd join Councillor Christie, as I always will, in having a go at these mad so-called libertarians. But I would...
Councillor Christie, I apologise on behalf of Councillor Fell for that cheap shot, and pay him no mind.
Certainly
pay him
not
no mind.
Certainly not a shot at Councillor Christie. But I would go slightly further. I'd say, look, at the moment, the best thing we've got going for us in dealing with this pandemic everywhere at the moment in Australia is the two strategies of masking and of social distancing. These are what we've got. You know, it's in a way it's not much when you think about it, but it's the best thing that we've got going for us. And I'd note, Mr. Mayor, that you've been at the forefront of urging people to wear masks and to keep their social distance. And I appreciate that greatly. It was brought home to me just recently when it was revealed that one of the people who tested positive in the mountains had until recently been a resident in my street and about 100 metres from my house. So it can be anywhere already, let alone be increased or have a chance of being increased by these people coming in and conducting these public meetings to spread their crackpot theories. The pandemic won't be brought under anything approaching effective suppression, let alone eradication, until we get an effective and safe vaccine. That's the opinion of those who have studied it, the people who are best able to give us this information, the medical experts and the health professionals. We can't have their best efforts undermined by people putting these opinions across, and not only doing that, but doing it in circumstances which, as Councillor Christie has pointed out, are potentially quite dangerous in themselves. I put it that my right and the right of every member of our community to a long and healthy life far outweighs the pseudo rights, or whatever, however they determine that, and I don't know how they determine where these rights derive from, but our right to a safe, healthy life for ourselves, for our children, for the people that we know, far outweighs the so-called rights of these crazies who wish to book our halls. And I totally support the motion put forward by Councillor Christie.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Fell. Councillor Brown, then Councillor van der Klee. Councillor Brown has the floor.
Yeah, I have a lot of concerns about this. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, far from it. Again, I've got family history that makes me absolutely understand the importance of vaccination. But I'm very worried about, do you know, like we've been having Black Lives Matters gatherings up here. We haven't banned them or refused to let them use council land. I'm not even sure that we can, you know, like, obviously, if people are not social distancing or behaving dangerously, again, we have to apply it to everybody, including the tourists. I'm just very worried about us. It is like a freedom of speech, and even if you don't agree with their speech, which I don't, they're two different things, and they seem to have got fused together. So are we saying we're not having any more Black Lives Matters gatherings, for instance? I'm getting really, it just concerns me what we're setting as a precedent that we would have to be equitable about. You know, it might be that we say you can have gatherings, but you have to wear masks. And I mean, if we're allowed, like, it's again, what authority we have. Where does our authority end? It's our land and so on. But I just feel it feels like a pretty tricky thing to set up, and the trouble it could cause for us, I guess, is what I'm concerned about, or that we can't apply something to one group that we don't agree with and then not to others that we do support. So that's my concern.
Councillor Brown, for the sake of debate, I'll take that as a speech against, although I know that you reserve the right to vote differently. You're on mute. Were you speaking against the motion or in favour?
Actually, I'm not sure. I'm interested if anyone's got a reply. Can I ask if you've got a response to what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm interested in that.
I don't. I'll take it as a speech against just for procedural purposes, as it'll give Councillor Christie a chance to respond to the issues you've raised. And I note that doesn't indicate how you'll vote, that you've got an open mind on that. Councillor van der Klee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I will be supporting this notice of motion. As one of the senior brigades here, senior members of the community here in the Blue Mountains, I've been speaking to a lot of people in my age bracket, and they are very, very worried. They are very concerned about the younger generation not doing social distancing. We, as a I'm talking about a collective. The elderly people are trying to do the right thing. They are doing the social distancing. And then you get the young people. I hear it time and time again. They are very worried. We are all very worried because we are vulnerable. Anybody that is a diabetic is vulnerable. Anybody that's got a slight lung disease, or as you get older, your body doesn't do what it used to do. Shortness of breath is just the fact of old age. And anything I can do to support the elderly in this community, whether it's banning someone else, is very, very important. And I totally support this. And I want to thank Councillor Christie for bringing it to our attention, because I've never heard of this group, but I am aware of anti-vaccination people. But, I see it time and time again. People just will not isolate, and it brings danger for the community, because look what happened in Victoria. We just do not want that here in the Blue Mountains, and we don't want to add to the deaths toll in this country. So I will be supporting it. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Mayor.
you. Councillor Fernanda.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think, sorry, are you able to hear me? I'm having a problem with audio.
Loud and clear.
Okay. I think in general, our state government is complacent with this issue in terms of mandating requirements and restrictions and protocols in place. I'm personally against any sort of mass gathering at this time. And I don't care what group you're from. I think it's really, really irresponsible at a time when we are having increases, that we're putting people at risk, especially those who are immunosuppressant, the elderly, as identified, people with other compromising illnesses. Now, you can have the virus and be actually asymptomatic. It doesn't always show up. So we actually really don't know the numbers out there of who is a carrier as opposed to who are symptomatic. So any sort of mass gathering at the moment, I think, is quite irresponsible. I'd actually like to see one step further. If we are going to say, yes, you can have your group gatherings, that it's mandatory that you wear masks and you do have that social distancing. I also think we have a responsibility as a local government at this important time to ensure that those who are coming and are gathering together are doing it responsibly, and certainly sprouting about conspiracy theories is not a responsible group gathering in my view. I think that I do support this motion because I think it is important that at this particular time, it's not discriminating against one group to another, it's actually about protection. And when you have groups like this who are sprouting irresponsible knowledge that it's not based on facts, but just a theory plucked from the air, I think it's highly dangerous. But I also would like to see as a local government, and I don't know if we have the mandate to do it, is to start enforcing that any gathering, mass gathering or group gatherings in the mountains, people wear masks.
And sadly, we don't.
Yeah,
sadly,
I work down at the COVID clinic, and I can tell you now that New South Wales Health and the doctors and the nurses that I've been working with are highly concerned because we haven't seen the beginning of it yet. We might have, 7 cases, 14 cases a day, but the view is that this is going to start increasing. Certainly not at the speed that Victoria has, but the incline is going to occur. And we need to protect our community.
Yes, and Councillor Fernanda, can I just acknowledge, I know you mentioned it, that for those that don't know in the audience, Councillor Fernanda works as a COVID testing nurse. That's her job. Acknowledge your service, and also bemoan the fact that sadly those powers you mentioned don't sit with us, but as I've been doing, we can keep lobbying state government. Thank you for your contribution. If you would go on mute, Councillor McGregor has the call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't see council playing host to groups that advocate behaviour that puts our community at risk. I think we've got a civic responsibility to not get those those people a platform to propagandise and advocate for behaviour that puts our community at risk. And in fact, that's the exact opposite of what is the case with Black Lives Matter. They don't do that. They advocate for behaviour or responses that will save lives, not put them at risk. I think that's a significant difference.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Councillor Hoare, and then I'll get the Deputy Mayor to take the chair briefly. Councillor Hoare has the call.
Can we hear, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Is that working?
Yes, it does appear to be.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, look, I just had a question. I just wonder whether we have the ability to deny bookings to any one particular group, or whether we ought to consider broadening the motion to insist that any gatherings on council properties or land be held in accordance with the New South Wales health orders in place at the time.
Councillor Hoare, I think if you were to read the motion, Councillor Hoare, if you read the motion carefully, what the motion does is it actually notes, it doesn't require us to do anything. It notes the effects of the New South Wales health order. The motion notes that a gathering like that would now be unlawful. And that's what Councillor Christie's resolution does. It draws our attention to the impact of the present health order and draws council's attention to the fact that it would, by its own terms, prohibit this event. So there's no need for.
I think that satisfies my confusion. I think, yep.
Councillor Hoare, I'm sorry, we're going to have to give up on you tonight and get a technician to your computer. It was working well before, but it's not now. Councillor Brown with a question.
I'm still struggling with, if we pass this, we're basically passing that we're not having gatherings. So does that mean we won't allow Black Lives Matters gatherings? And is that, I'm asking that to Councillor Christie, and also to through you to Dr. Dillon.
Yeah, Councillor Christie, are you happy to take that question? As I understand it, the health order, and Dr. Dillon might take this up after Councillor Christie responds, prohibits mass gatherings generally. But Councillor Christie, do you want to answer that, or do you want me to go straight to staff?
Just very briefly, the matter of urgency is quite clear about a group of busloads of people just crisscrossing the state violating the public health order. But if the mass gathering is in violation of the public health order, I assume, regardless of the group, then I assume that it would be denied, but best response would be from the General Manager. CEO, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Christie. CEO, I know that we've got our officer responsible for COVID matters there tonight. Through you, can I ask, would it be the effect of the current health order to prohibit any mass gatherings?
Yes, that is the effect of the current order.
Yes, thank you. All right. Did anyone else wish to speak before I get the Deputy Mayor to take the chair? No. Deputy Mayor, would you take the chair?
I'll take the chair, Mr. Mayor. You have the floor.
Yeah, look, yeah, thank you. Look, I just want to take this opportunity to repeat a message that for those of you who've seen my social media or my my media, since the pandemic started, almost every day I've been posting messages as the Mayor of the City, asking people to adhere to social distancing. And I want to focus on that in what I'm going to say tonight. I've also been advocating for the last week that people should look to wear masks as well. It's my strong view, based on the evidence that we've got, that this virus, this pandemic, does pose a very real and very imminent threat to our community and others. And as community leaders, it's the same when the bushfires occur, our number one job has got to be to protect the interests and the safety of our community. I think this is a time when, and it's like bushfires, when the politics falls away and community comes first. Irrespective of the philosophical stance that you might normally take on these matters, at a time of emergency, you've got to put that aside and put the safety of our community first. In bushfires, there are tactical burns that occur during the course of a fire that may impact areas of bush that we feel sorry about, but we understand that the paramount importance is protecting communities so those burns are initiated, because we need to protect the people who live here and who we're charged with protecting. Similarly, we bandy around terms about whether we're libertarians or not. I'm certainly not. I'm a strong centralist, big government, that's me. But anyway, those terms don't matter. And that's why I'm really pleased that Councillor Christie's brought this forward tonight. He's made the point that what matters here is the health and safety of our community. I agree 100%. We should not be uncomfortable about saying that. I also agree that one of the issues we confront at the moment is another epidemic, another pandemic, and it's a pandemic of misinformation. There are statements being made by people about COVID-19 being a scamdemic, about it being some device of big government to control us all. That is patent bullshit. And it absolutely...
Mr. Mayor, I think the last remark needs...
Yes, I withdraw, Deputy Mayor. It's patent crap. And it's something that we need to make a stand about as community leaders. We should not be shy of the retribution that may come. We need to speak against misinformation that puts our community at risk. So it's not just the gathering itself which puts our community at risk, but the misinformation that flows from this particular gathering at this time. And so, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I do support this urgency motion. I think it fits with the messaging that on your behalf I've been making since the beginning of the pandemic and will continue to make. The number one thing here is that we do everything we can to keep our community safe. And I'll end with this. I made this comment at the beginning of the pandemic. In the time that I've been mayor, I said we've confronted two very serious bushfire threats. And while the devastation to animals was awful and apparent, no human life was lost in both. I would like for us to be in a position at the end of this pandemic, whenever that may be, to say that we didn't lose any members of our community, but at the very least we did everything, no matter how uncomfortable, to protect the people we're elected by. And so our messaging, because we don't have control over the health orders, our messaging is crucial, because that leadership can help to keep our people safe. Mr. Deputy Mayor, if it pleases you, I'll resume the chair.
You have the chair, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Is there any further on this matter? I'll take it to have been spoken against, and I'll give the mover right of reply.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And yes, I do have a right of reply. And I thank all the concerns regarding freedom of speech. As a libertarian believer, I am staunchly in favour of freedom of speech. But this is not a freedom of speech issue. People are free to spruik their views across social media, newspapers, radio, etc. But in this face of a global pandemic that has killed hundreds of thousands of people worldwide, at the moment, mass gatherings are just one of those avenues that we shouldn't. But this is an issue regarding busloads of people. Yes, they're anti-vaxxers. I don't support their views, but I support their right to be wrong. But at the moment, this bus is crisscrossing New South Wales. They don't believe in COVID-19 and are outright flaunting preventative measures to stop its spread. They don't care if they go through a hotspot, and they don't care if they become a carrier, and they don't care if they pass on to someone else, because it's just the flu. But what if it's passed on to an elderly person, like a significant proportion of our demographic? But also, what if it's passed on to someone within the high risk category? And Councillor Vanderklay made the point about someone who's type 1 diabetic. Me, myself, I'm 29. I'm relatively healthy. There have been people in my age bracket and in my health status that have died from this virus. My wife is the same age as me, and she is type 1 diabetic. She is in a high risk category. If these people could potentially spread this virus and could potentially kill her. And there's other type 1 diabetics outside of the age bracket of 40 to 90, where it's most. But also, another thing to think of is that when somebody gets COVID-19 and they go to hospital and they deteriorate, they go onto life support machines. They go onto ventilators. And I'm not sure if anyone around this table has actually seen anyone on a ventilator, but I've got a memory burned into my mind of a 4-year-old boy on a ventilator. And I know very well that 4-year-old boy because that was my son. And it is the most heartbreaking thing to see a loved one on a ventilator, not knowing when they're going to come out of it. So this motion to deny people the opportunity to potentially spread a disease that can put someone into that state, you better believe that I don't think they should come here at this time and potentially put our loved ones onto a ventilator. That's all I've got to say on this.
Yeah, thank you. There's one matter before us. I'll put it. All those in favour? I think it's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Thank you. I was right in calling that unanimously. Yes. Thank you, councillors. Matter of urgency in the name of Councillor McGregor in relation to the Woolworths development proposed for Springwood and its impact on the arts. I declare the matter is urgent. Councillor Christie will exit the room. It's seconded by Councillor Fell. Councillor McGregor has the call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe the words of the urgency motion have been circulated. I haven't got them here in front of me.
Yeah, they've been circulated.
Okay, so I won't refer to them directly, but you understand the thrust of them. It's that the council will make a submission on the impacts of on the Blue Mountains Theatre of the Woolworths development, and particularly of the proximity of the delivery dock and the plant room directly adjacent to the theatre stage and audience itself, and the impact of on the acoustics of that theatre. The Blue Mountains Theatre and Hub has been a $15 million investment in the performing arts, and it's been an extraordinarily successful one. And it's hosted, sell-out shows consistently of renowned musicians and performers, both local, national and international. And it's worth pointing out that the Walkley Award-winning music theatre and critic, John Shand, has said of this theatre, and I quote, if you bear with me, that the Blue Mountains Theatre is the finest concert venue in Greater Sydney, period. The finest concert venue in Greater Sydney. It boasts superior and more flexible acoustics to any room at the Sydney Opera House, the Parramatta Riverside, the Seymour Theatre, the City Recital Hall, or anywhere else. I have said, he goes on to say, as much in the Sydney Morning Herald, and audience members, artists and promoters have been discovering this for themselves. The theatre is a treasure, not just for the Blue Mountains community, but for music lovers across the metropolis. it has an extraordinarily good acoustics, and those acoustics will be affected by the noises of reversing vehicles, the hum of the plant and equipment room attached to the supermarket, destroying the fine acoustics that are currently enjoyed by both performers and patrons of the theatre. It's particularly galling, I think, as a friend of mine said, that this is happening during the COVID pandemic, when supermarkets have been the big winners from the COVID pandemic, while theatres, performing artists and musicians have been the big losers. I urge you to support this.
Thank you. I'm going to take the seconder, and then given that we've got a lot of urgency motions tonight, we're moving very slowly through them. I'm then going to ask if there's any opposition to this, but I will ask the seconder if he wishes to speak.
Yes, I'll try to be very brief. Mr. Mayor, I think Councillor McGregor has expressed most of the issues regarding the noise, but I'd just add a couple of comments. One is I don't think I'd want to be in the hub during the time when they excavate 3,500 or 3,700 square metres to a depth of about 7 metres for the underground car parking. I would like to see them do that without, well, I don't want to see them do it at all, but I think it would be impossible to do that without significant disruption to the hub and, in fact, to Braemar, which will also have an effect on the arts. But the constant truck movements going between the Ori Hotel and the hub, as in the present proposal, I believe will just have an absolutely dreadful, devastating effect on the quality of the hub and the experience of people who go there to listen to various musical and spoken performances that take place there. I think it's a case of an attempt to overdevelop the site. It's filling it to its absolute every edge, building right to every edge, and presenting a three-story concrete wall to the rest of the village. Its effect on the arts, which is what we're talking about now, I think will be absolutely devastating. It will be an absolute shame given the comments that have been made, particularly by John Shand, the comments that, who I might point out too is a Blue Mountains resident, and were pointed out by Councillor McGregor, but countless other people have expressed the same thing to me. And I think it's the current proposal is just one which I can't countenance going ahead in my ward. I just can't do it, which is why I've withdrawn from being on the panel, and will advocate for this proposal not to go ahead in its current form. Thank you.
Yeah, councillors, we are getting through these urgencies way too slowly. Because Councillor Fernanda tried to second the motion, I'm going to ask her if she wishes to speak, and then I'm going to ask if there is any opposition. Councillor Fernanda, you wish to say anything?
Just really quickly then, I know we're late, but I want to also once again express the sentiments that Councillor Fell has mentioned and Councillor McGregor. I too will oppose anything that's going to, or advocate for those who want to oppose it, that really sort of threaten the, I guess, the professionalism and the contribution that the arts make to not just the Blue Mountains, but also to Ward 3. I think it's appalling that it could even be considered that something can jeopardise the quality and calibre of anyone performing in the hub.
Thanks,
so
Councillor.
I'm with Councillor Fell on this too, and Councillor Miles.
Thanks, Councillor Fernanda, and Councillor Fell got you by a hair's breadth, and that's why I wanted to give you the right to speak. So thank you. Does anyone oppose this motion? Because if so, I'm going to ruthlessly suggest I put it, just because we're moving so slowly. There's no opposition. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against, declare it carried unanimously. I have a notice of motion from Councillor Schreiber in relation to technical difficulties with the online consultation forums for Medlow Bath highway duplication.
I'll second that.
It's moved to Councillor Schreiber, seconded Councillor Brown. Councillor Schreiber has the call. And again, councillors, if you don't oppose this, and you're not the mover or seconder, don't necessarily feel the need to speak. It's up to you ultimately. Councillor Schreiber. Councillor Schreiber, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we've tried to have a consultation at Medlow Bath with the community about this, and with technical difficulties, it just did not go ahead as Councillor McGregor and I and others would be able to relate to. But I think it's most important that we try and get this done as a face-to-face forum for the people in Medlow Bath. They are the ones that are going to suffer. At the moment, they have been totally forgotten about and virtually just put out there that they're going to have to cop what they say. I think that is wrong attitude to have, that we should be able to have a face-to-face and ask for this to be extended and get the council to write and ask for at least another month's extension or longer, so that we can meet with the community and get their feeling. I don't know how the community is going to put up with the extension of that highway and the widening of it through Medlow and what the damage it's going to do to their way of life. So I'm asking that we get total support for this, Mr. Mayor, and get it taken up further. Thank you.
Yes, I should say I do rule it's urgent. Does the seconder wish to speak?
Just briefly on that. So I think neither Councillor McGregor nor Councillor Schreiber could get into the online. I got in, but then we spent a whole time not being able to hear. So they were having teething problems, but you'd actually think by now a government department would have sorted out that sort of level of online work. So it was really not good. But I also think there is a problem with it does exclude, not everyone is comfortable using online consultation. It doesn't work for everyone. I think it's not such a huge community that they can't do what Councillor Schreiber is suggesting. Those small, obviously socially distanced, small gatherings that people can come and talk and have a proper exchange. It just was not, it just was not working, and most people didn't even get to speak in the end, let alone ask questions. So I think pushing for that, and so they're going to need more time to do it more slowly. And as you say, Mr. Mayor, if there's a sort of agenda to sort of, I don't know, get this thing moving or meet an election promise, too bad. They have to do this properly. This is really, we've already said as a council, we want them to do the safety, because they kept, what was happening is they were blurring the safety needs with the duplication. So it was clear that they're not going to do the safety. They're going to wait till they can do it all as part of the duplication. And we've already said we don't agree with that. And I think that's the point. We want this to be done in a proper way, and that means proper consultation. And also, I saw that Councillor Schreiber's motion includes that we do need to send the Minister and the Director our motion from last month, that we don't want them to proceed with the duplication till they have everything in place, including for Blackheath. They should not create havoc in Medlow Bath with a 5-lane with 2 lanes at either end. So we need to reinforce that, and that the consultation needs to be done in a proper manner. So, and both of those things, I think, need to be in a letter to the Minister and to Mr. Lunn. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor McGregor, did you wish to say anything? No? No? All right. Is there any opposition to this? There being no opposition, there's one matter before us. I'll put it all as in favour. Against, declare it carried unanimously. Councillors, there were a lot of urgency motions tonight. They were all urgent, but I think it's incumbent on us all to be sure that, like tonight, we only bring matters forward as urgencies when they are. They were indeed tonight, even though there was a lot of them. We'll move adjournment. I know Councillor Fernanda wants to make a statement on adjournment. It's moved Councillor Vanderklay, seconded Councillor Fernanda, that we close the meeting. And Councillor Fernanda, on closure, you wish to say something? The clock starts now.
Yeah, and I deliberated whether I should say something, but I actually feel that I need to. There was a public post put up by a councillor that that seemed to denigrate, I guess, nurses and their ability, or professions and their ability to chair meetings. Now, I don't care about myself. My name was mentioned in this post, and I don't really care. This isn't about me being upset or taking it personally. But what I do take extreme offence to, and I think it's appalling, that this councillor puts up on her Facebook post about nurses not insinuating they don't have the capability to chair a meeting because of their profession. In a time when nurses are putting themselves on the line dealing with this COVID-19 and they're risking their lives for the greater good of the community, I think it's absolutely disgusting. And I think and the reason why I'm bringing this up, because it actually brings the council into disrepute. It actually makes us look bad as a council when someone can go on Facebook and have a go at a nurse about chairing a meeting because she doesn't think she has the capabilities. And I'd like to put it out there for anyone who read that post, anyone in the public. And I'm sure many of the other councillors and council staff do not denigrate nurses the way that this post had insinuated. I think it's absolutely appalling. And that councillor knows who she is. And I'd like to think that out of decency, they remove it and they make a public apology to the nurses out there. That was I'm still talking.
Actually not acceptable.
On a
Sorry,
point of
it's
order.
not acceptable. We're now having someone making an attack, and it's not.
Councillor Brown, what's the point of order?
The point of order is that this councillor is using this platform to attack another councillor. It's really inappropriate.
Well, I'm sorry, but a councillor used her Facebook post.
Councillors, I'm the chair. Councillor Brown, no name was mentioned. Councillor Fernanda, I think you're drawing to an end.
I am drawing to an end, but I just think it's quite hypocritical then that a councillor can use her Facebook post to attack another councillor and their profession and the profession of nurses in general by insinuating.
That's actually untrue. This is now becoming really outrageous.
Councillor Brown, what's the point of order?
The point of order is someone is making claims now that are completely untrue.
Yeah, Councillor Brown.
May I please read the post? If
no,
it's untrue?
Councillor Fernanda, no, you may not. Councillor Fernanda, I think you've made a very strong point tonight. I'm going to ask you to draw the comments to a close, if you will, if you don't mind.
No, I've got nothing more to say. They know who they are and they know what they've done.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Fernanda. Anyone else wish to comment on closure? There being no one else, councillors, I thank you all for your time tonight, and I wish you all a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks. Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.
And
Hi, Mark.
good on you.
We have to put it to a vote.
Oh, yes. Before I close the meeting, I moved. I was a little distracted there. It was a more fulsome debate about closure than I've seen before. So I will put it to a vote. All those in favour of closing the meeting?
Aye.
I declare it carried unanimously. I think with Councillor Brown out of the room.
Yeah, Councillor Brown's gone.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, councillors.
We do have quorum. We do still have quorum.
We do. Good night. Cheers.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Line for and get my sound is working. Oh, anybody up there? Can I be heard? Is this working? Can I be heard?
We can hear you.
It's terrible. It's really jerky, like
It's
just
really
broken.
I don't think my internet connection's unstable, but
Brent, I'll give you a call
really
tomorrow.
You might be better to not use. You might be better to use 4G. I've had that problem sometimes. Like tonight was pretty good, but
We're still live streaming, so we'll sort it tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, I might be able to fix it by getting my NBN box. Thank you all. Good night. Lovely. Cheers.
Good night.
Right.